Hello, everybody. It's that time again. It's the podcast, people. This is Radio Free Nintendo. I am your host, John Lindemann, and this is episode 582. It is July 26th, Thursday, July 26th, 2018. Your normal host, James Jones, normal in quotes, he is otherwise engaged. So he passed the keys to Greg, and of course Greg immediately passed the keys to me because that is exactly what James Jones did not want. And
seniority is strictly seniority.
Speaking of those two gentlemen, we have Greg Leahy.
Ahoy, ahoy, everyone.
And everybody's favorite Frenchman, Guillaume.
I'm just an innocent bystander in all of this.
Guillaume Veillette.
I take no part.
So we are starting the show completely cold. I decided to take the throne while it was empty. So I don't really have any agenda here aside from my own agenda. So we are going to start off with Greg Leahy kicking off new business.
Yeah, I got a couple of things to talk about this week that are things I've been playing, like, not especially recently, but it's kind of these things where I've been playing them gradually, so they've not really been natural kind of topics to play, you know, as a new business kind of item, because I haven't played them in a big chunk the way I would have done with stuff like Sonic Mania, for instance, last week. So thought this week, having mostly just played a bit more Sonic Mania, and finally did see the real ending after playing through it a couple of times and getting the emeralds, which was probably more difficult than it should have been because I never got good at those bonus stages, but I still enjoyed the process in general. The first game I'm going to talk about is Battle Chasers and Nightwar, which is an RPG that came out for Switch sort of belatedly relative to other formats, I think in May of this year, which was kind of a Kickstarter deal at one point, sort of headed up by, I guess what's left of what was Vigil Games, obviously Joe Madureira's kind of development team. He was a comic book artist in the 90s. I kind of know his work through seeing some of his X-Men stuff back from that time period, but this property, Battle Chasers Nightwar, was a comic back then, and I guess this is kind of a reference to that. I have no familiarity with that source material whatsoever, but yeah, I guess the Kickstarter was about kind of resurrecting that property as a game, and mostly as kind of a traditional style JRPG, really, even though this is not being developed by Japanese people or anything, but it's very much in that style mechanically. And so, yeah, I played through it over quite a long period of time because I remember reading reviews, for instance, Neil's on Nintendo World Report, kind of talking about the fact that it's not that long, compared to other of games of this type that I could name. Like I think probably maybe like roughly like half the length of something like Bravely Default, but which sounded kind of up my street. But at the same time, Neil and others did say that like the difficulty curve's kind of a bit uneven, and you might find yourself hitting a bit of a wall and maybe having to do some kind of grinding with it. And so sort of forearmed with that knowledge, I kind of took it very gradually, did a lot of side stuff, and that kind of naturally slowed down the pace. I wasn't like thinking, I'm getting close to the end, I'm gonna play really intensely or something.
Now, do they make that easy to do? Like, are there obvious side quests and stuff like that?
Yeah, there's plenty of side stuff to do in terms of, like, I mean, first of all, you've got these kind of quests that you can get from the hub town, where it's like, okay, there's some kind of monster out there somewhere, like a boss essentially, that's not story critical, but it'll give you kind of a hint, something about it that might resonate with you if you've explored around, and you'll think, oh, okay, that could be what that quest is talking about from the hub town. Go and kill that. You'll get a bunch of experience. You'll get some kind of items that might be helpful. Loot, all that kind of stuff. So those things, and then some side quests, and then also the ability to replay dungeons, possibly on a higher difficulty. There's a procedural element to the dungeons, so they wouldn't be exactly the same. You could cranking up the difficulty gives you better rewards, and of course you get more experience from that. So if you're kind of thinking about it from the start, it does slow the game down in some ways. I probably spent more time, than I would have done if I'd just gone into it like blind. But in the end, the experience was kind of gradual but smoother for it, which was fine with me. I think, and the fact that it wasn't too kind of bloated in length, in terms of especially like the plot is not particularly great or anything. It's not particularly unique or fresh or anything you might say about that. It seems pretty boilerplate type stuff, but it's delivered in a sort of likable enough fashion, and it's not too wordy or obtrusive, which personally is fine with me in this sort of game. Something like Bravely Default, which I like. I played both of them. Is much more so on that side, and you could argue, it's got more interesting story components for it, but it's also kind of gets in your way more as well. So there's a kind of trade off there. And I guess some of the reason why I brought up Bravely Default is because it's there's some similarities with the battle system. It's not as fully kind of fledged as the Brave and Default, that substitution of turns that you can do in the case of Bravely Default and Bravely Second. But in Battle Chasers, you've got this sort of overcharge mechanic where it's like if you perform basic actions, kind of just like just swinging your sword or whatever, if the character in question is a sword user, that will add to like a pool of overcharge points. So it's kind of like similar in the way that with you might default in Bravely Default to kind of save up more power for a subsequent attack, or to take multiple turns at once to do more damage in a window. Similar sort of principle here. It's just not as kind of specifically kind of carved out in that way, but you kind of still kind of eating your vegetables a little bit when you're kind of using basic actions, and then you can go hog wild, especially with certain characters who might have perks associated with the fact that you're using these overcharge points that you get for kind of just using the basic actions, and it conserves magic, kind of, which will otherwise necessary to mana, I think it says in this, which is otherwise necessary to perform more advanced actions. So that kind of helps conserve things if you're in the middle of a dungeon and you haven't got a bunch of potions or whatever on hand to replenish your mana and whatnot, and it works well as a battle system. And like I said, it'd be familiar to anybody who likes turn-based JRPGs. The fact that it's got this sort of comic book look and everything,
it looks really good. I'm watching a video of it right now, just because I'm a professional, and it looks amazing.
I do like Madureira's art in general. Definitely some fairly distinctly 90s-ness about it, now when we're sort of removed from that time period. But
that's probably why I like it. I am distinctive 90s.
Yeah, I was very much a kid of the 90s myself, so it's not really a bad thing. But and it translates to the game well and all that. But I guess it's. Mechanically you get the JRPG vibes. In terms of, like I said, the story, it's not as wordy, and in terms of things like the music, it's far more based on sort of being kind of atmospheric, maybe a little bit more like a movie kind of score, understated, rather than the kind of big catchy kind of themes that you expect from the typical sort of the classic JRPG kind of experience, or indeed games that have tried to evoke that, like Bravely Default. So it might not scratch the itch in that sense if you're looking for that kind of thing, but in general I think kind of the play mechanics, the art, all that stuff comes together well, and I see it's not all that fresh in the memory now. I might be sort of glossing over some things that weren't great about it or whatever, but it was a nice experience, the kind of more the kind of size of JRPG that I would probably, or just RPG in general, I should say, that I kind of like, and not too not too kind of focused with like getting into minutiae about characters and stuff. And some cool bosses that kind of take advantage of the battle mechanics. Yeah, I'd say. There were times in the back half of the game where I felt like maybe I was overpowered because I'd kind of prepared, but there were still some key bosses that were tricky. So I don't think you're necessarily in trouble of feeling like you've totally broken the game. Although if you're better at managing JRPG style systems than I am, you might. There's always that. But it was nice, and that kind of clears my RPG deck now.
Yeah. Now, how long are the bosses at the end? How do they handle them? Do they handle them with? Is it this is my third form sort of thing, or is it just a long boss fight?
It's not the heights of excess of that. Like I said, it's definitely, for not being truly a JRPG, it does lack some of the excess that the real deal kind of has, and that's. Like, there's a place for that. I kind of admire it, and I wouldn't want it to go away altogether. But at the same time, it's there's something to be said for a bit of restraint, or just whatever it was that led to it. Maybe it was just
you don't have to do it every single time.
No, and for all I know, maybe they would have loved to have 3 forms, but it was like budgetary constraints or something.
Yeah,
exactly. I have no
exactly.
idea whether it was actually voluntary restraint or not. But I think it works. The kind of scale that they've got here. Turns out it runs on Switch specifically, as did come a few months later and whatnot. So I imagine they had to take some time to get it running as best they could, down from the other consoles. It's generally fine. I mean, there's some stutters here or there, but nothing usually that really matters because it's a turn-based kind of game. And the aesthetic comes across quite nicely. I could think of one example still at this point in a dungeon where you've got environmental sort of hazards, kind of like flame shooting out, which will have an effect on your character that will persist into battles, where the frame rate was taking a substantial hit, and that was affecting my ability to actually avoid those hazards. So
probably specifically for flames, I would imagine.
That was very much suboptimal, but
yeah,
it's pretty much a one-off. In most cases, if it does kind of stutter a bit, it really has not a material effect on gameplay, and it does well enough. I played it pretty much all in portable mode, so I can't speak to how it does in docked. Which is generally worth keeping in mind for pretty much everything I speak about on Switch. It's usually in portable mode, but really quite pleased with that. And like I said, I'm free now to sort of get another RPG going at some point. Octopath sounds like it's more on the big side in terms of time investment if you want to see everything. Which is a little bit intimidating. There's plenty that sounds really, kind of consider I did enjoy with some reservations. The Bravely Default games. It kind of seems like I probably would enjoy Octopath, but there's always a little bit daunting when it's gonna be that long. But I'll probably get there eventually and play that very gradually too. But the quick thing I want to mention as well, because I doubt there'll be another sort of opportunity to do this, was Super Mario Maker for 3DS. I was not really intending on picking this up, but I know Guillaume's spoken before about those wonderfully useful birthday offers that you get from My Nintendo. So
30% off.
30% off games you already own, right?
But exactly, yes.
It's not actually in the text, but sometimes it feels as if it could be, or perhaps should be. Well, but in my case, it was there was a tiny little overlap of a few days of like the month-long offer on 30% off these games that I basically do already own. But then one of them was Super Mario Maker for 3DS, which I don't have. Obviously, I had the Wii U game. We spoke about that at length years ago. But the 3DS game, right at the tail end of that period, became a Nintendo Selects game, and the 30% still applied. So it went from being 20 some odd quid with the discount to about 11. So I thought, well, for that it does. I've read before that it has about 100 or so courses designed by Nintendo. In this case, tied to the unlocking of course components. If you remember back in Super Mario Maker on Wii U, that was tied to just like using stuff. Basically, like you could like spam tiles for ages, and eventually would say, okay, now you're ready to use, wigglers, or I can't remember. So in this case, it's okay. They kind of dole out stages with different elements, and then you complete a few of the. They have group them into worlds, and you beat a world, and it's like, okay, right now you can use some of these elements in your own courses, kind of thing. And as I've said before, I hit a wall with creating stuff on Wii U. I don't really see any kind of further potential for creating stuff on 3DS, and I wouldn't be able to share it if I did have some sort of epiphany making it on there, because it was limited to local sharing. But for a little more than a tenner to play all these levels, I certainly got a hell of a lot of use out of playing Mario Maker levels made by some people I know, like TYP and yourselves and whatnot, and then so just random people or whatever. But the Nintendo ones, and the fact that in this case they have like these kind of medals built in, the things, basically achievement style extra things that you can do while completing the level to kind of unlock even more levels and even more course elements, seemed like a neat kind of thing to have access to just on the 3DS for kind of casual pick up and play every now and then. And it's proven to be good in that capacity. I mean, as you might expect, the 2D games look very nice on 3DS. The new Super Mario Bros. Toolset is surprising in a little way, kind of looks rougher than like New Super Mario Bros. 2 did, but I assume it's because they're straining to be able to accommodate the sheer amount of stuff that Super Mario Maker kind of may often have on screen. Objects bouncing around, like loads of enemies stacked on top of each other. I'm guessing it's just given that it's got to be more open-ended than the specific design of New Super Mario Bros. 2. They've got to dialed it back a little bit, so that looks kind of a bit rough and very much like a down port of a Wii U game, but in general, it functions perfectly fine, and it's a nice little source of 2D Mario enjoyment while we wait for either Mario Maker to come back or New Super Mario Bros. To come back or something else on Switch sometime, presumably in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I mean it's probably not a bad idea to download everything while you can, because you never know when the chance to access those things is going to go away, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't accessed any on, because you can access levels off the internet. You just can't share yours onto the internet. I think that's you can
download them, right?
I think you can download them, but I have not done that yet because I've still haven't worked with like this. There's quite a lot of levels just on there that Nintendo have made as part of this revised way of unlocking course elements, and I haven't even got through those yet, like I said, because I've not been playing it in a concentrated fashion. And obviously I do already have I have it on Wii U. If I want to play levels off the internet, I guess, but it's just not that convenient anymore using the Wii U. Whereas 3DS is something that still, in some contexts, is I'm more likely to have on me than Switch, because it's it's not the most portable thing in the world.
Yeah. I mean, but definitely, I mean, if you just want some new Mario, I mean, it's a great way to do it. I mean, why not? Right, if you can get 30% off of it, I'd probably bite on that too.
If there was, but like I said, the fact that it became, I think it was alongside the 3D remake of DKC Returns and something else. They're still adding titles to Nintendo Selects on 3DS, so have it digitally and all that kind of stuff at a reasonable price. It's coming handy.
Yeah, I mean, I remember. I got my 30% coupon back in May, and there was nothing I wanted, because if Super Mario Maker would have been on there, I definitely would have bought it, like 100%. But there was nothing.
No, I looked at it for a long time.
That I didn't already own.
I kind of felt that way on the face of it, but it just so happened that they dropped the full price of of 3DS Super Mario Maker right as that offer was expiring. So when I kind of did my final check of like, is there anything I could use, that it worked out for one. That may be the last time that ever worked.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't anticipate it working out like that again. All right. Anything else, Greg?
No. Like I said, enjoyed Sonic Mania. I've got WarioWare on order. That just came out like a couple hours ago here, so probably talk about that next week. But yeah, nothing yet.
All right.
I've arrived. I hate the world. Anyway, Guillaume, what have you been up to lately?
Yes. Well, I've been playing a lot of games, actually. I'm probably not going to have time to mention them all. But one game that I checked out, partly because Soren, friend of the show, Soren, said that this was her favorite puzzle game of all time.
Oh, no.
I went and I
statement.
invested a few bucks into Money Puzzle Exchanger, which is an actual game that came out for the Neo Geo.
Yeah. Arcade Archives.
Is it about a bureau de change?
And almost.
Yeah,
it is.
Actually, you're not that far off.
Yeah, so what's the puzzle game that I'm thinking of? The other well-regarded puzzle Neo Geo game. God damn it, I should have done my research earlier.
Bubble Bobble?
No, the one where you grab gems from that drop from the top and then you shoot them back up. It's a well-known series. God damn it.
It sounds like Puzzle Bobble.
Yeah, but it's not. It's anyway, it will come back to me at some point.
Fuck you, Neo Geo, and you're repeating it. It's not like
Yeah,
something...
everybody rushes to the internet.
It's not like Puzzled, is it? Which is the only other Neo Geo puzzle game I could think of.
Magical Drop. So this game is very, very much like Magical Drop, except instead of drops, instead of bubbles, instead of round colors, which are boring, it's definitely non-boring Japanese currency. So
Money makes the world go round, y'all.
So by shots of like 1 yen and 5 and 10. So, as I said, like this game plays a lot like Magical Drop because you've got these pieces coming from the top of the screen, and you basically kind of like absorb, one, or if they're in a group, like one color basically, but like you just take these a group of a certain denomination, and then you can shoot it back up, and if you stick 5 1 yen coins together, they just form 1 5 yen coin. And if you put 2 5 yen coins together, then you get a 10 yen coin. And so the maximum is a 500 yen coin. And when you get 2 of those together, they disappear and they make the most points. But of course, your goal is to do combos. And so you'll try to usually, shoot that clump of 1 yen coins that you have together in a spot that will create a 5 yen coin that will, create this cascade, chain reaction to then, clear out like the most of the screen as possible and get you the most points possible. It's a puzzle game. It's an action puzzle game. It's pretty tough, and I still don't, I'm still not clear about a few things about the game, such as where, when you've got kind of a mostly horizontal clump of like 1 yen coins, for instance, on the screen, where the 5 yen coin will appear. So, which is kind of important because the whole point, like the whole chain system rests on the knowledge of where that freaking coin will appear if you want to create chains. So and the fact that the instructions within the game are in English doesn't help. But there is a manual that I haven't checked out, so maybe I should do that. I'm sure that the manual is more modern and more helpful. But yeah, like it's fun enough. The problem is that as many of these kind of action puzzle games, the game is more fun competitively. I don't really have anyone to play with. Like Karen is absolutely uninterested in this. But it's still, it's still kind of a fun example of that genre, and it's got a very anime look. And, there's English in the instructions, but there's also, like, the most awesome names for the characters who look like they're out of Sailor Moon. So you've got, like, a character called Det Miser, in one word. You've got some kid in a Doug suit who's called Coquetry, like Coquetry, or I don't know. It's just like, it's really, really wacky. And there's one character who looks exactly like Sailor Moon's little sister. So it's ripping off the Sailor Moon look, and it's injecting capitalism in there instead. So I guess it's an improvement. One thing is that this game, just like all the Neo Geo ports, has kind of the caravan mode and the high score mode for online leaderboards. So caravan mode is like, you've got 5 minutes to get as far as you can into the game, get the most points, and then your score is shared online. And then high score mode is the same thing, except the high score mode is the same thing, except that you don't have the 5-minute limit. And,
are you okay, Guillaume?
Yeah, I'm good.
Are you sure?
He's coming through fine for me.
I'm not talking about the quality of the call. I'm talking about the quality of his life with these online high score modes.
Oh, I see.
Are
I
you
thought for sure?
Are you okay?
Yes, I'm good. I'm probably
maybe
I'm not very.
A new love of his life, maybe.
No, because see, I'm not very good at puzzle games. I'm definitely not good at this puzzle game, and so. And also, something I was getting at is that there are 3 modes, 2 modes really. There's like player 1 versus player 2. There's 1 versus the computer, and there's also kind of an endless mode. And I would have expected the endless mode to be the mode that the game has you compete on, but no, it has you compete on the versus com mode. Which is weird because your progress and the amount of points that you can make is kind of dependent on luck, like or on the stupidity of the AI and that you're against, and it's kind of a weird quirk, and it's not how I would have dealt with this online mode. Anyway, I still think that the online leaderboards is what I'm gonna get the most use out of with this game, because unless I find someone else to play with, and it's nice that the leaderboards are there, but it's just a weird choice not to have the endless mode be the competitive online mode. Another game that I've been playing is Space Dave. So again, we're in online leaderboards, like high score points, high score chasing games, and Space Dave is of course the follow up to Whoa Dave, which came out on Wii U and 3DS.
Which is the follow up to Dave.
I don't know that one.
It was a joke.
Yes, I know. I missed the original Dave.
It's the follow up to Dave Coulier. Yes.
It was in that movie. It was in that movie. Dave was. Was that a Kevin Kline movie, or am I just imagining that?
No, I believe you. It is Kevin Kline's Sigourney Weaver. Yeah,
I think. Yeah,
we're there.
It's like a early '90s comedy drama White House movie.
Yeah, exactly the kind of the kind of movies that I watched as a teenager in the early 90s.
Well, it's the kind of movie you'd base Whoa Dave on. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, like Kevin Kline signed me up. But yeah, so
Sigourney Weaver was in it. Franklin Jella's a good actor.
So
sometimes.
You're a big fan of him in Dracula or Masters of the Universe?
Yes, Oscar quality performance.
I don't think any of this would have happened if I just kept hosting, by the way.
That's true, yes.
Point.
Yeah,
Fair
we wouldn't have been derailed by Kevin Kline, whose greatest role is still on Bob's Burgers. But anyway, so Whoa Dave was, of course, a kind of a one-screen arcade game, kind of a love letter to old-school arcade games that had kind of a little bit of, Joust DNA in it, a little bit of Super Mario Brothers. Not Super Mario Brothers, sorry, the first one, Mario Brothers to it. Yeah. And Space Dave this time takes more inspiration from Galaga, because it has you just moving left and right, and also you can jump, and you have this kind of hover ability. But mostly you move left and right, and you shoot up at the aliens that come at the top of the screen, and who attack you by dropping down at you and by shooting bullets at you. So very Galaga-like. When they touch the ground, they turn a part of the floor into lava, and then from then on, like, you have to avoid the lava. You have to jump over it if you don't want to die. The Galaga part of it, only if you don't want to die. If you want to die, go ahead.
If you want to die,
jump
go
right
for it.
into,
Yeah. We covered that last week.
Yeah, so the...
This is the creeping, like, specter of willingness to die that has come over the show.
The power of death.
It comes back every episode now. It's getting a little bit... it's a crutch.
The Grim Reaper is our fifth chair.
Oh, God. So, and
he is impatient.
The most Galaga part of this game is that sometimes you've got these, choice provisions characters at the top of the screen piloting this UFO and dropping down at you this POW block that you can grab and throw on the ground under, a clump of enemies, and then all of the enemies above it, well, not all of them, to a certain, limit, like maybe like 8 of them, will join you and will fire up at, the aliens with you as you fire. Like, they become your kind of second ship in Galaga, except that you've got like 8 of them. Unfortunately for them, they take hits and they can die, and you usually lose them pretty quickly. But when you get them, like, it's very helpful, especially against bosses. And the game is well made, and it's got a kind of a nice unpredictability, because there are only like 3 types usually of waves that can come at you. But when you start the game, like, it doesn't always start the same way. It's gonna have, like, it's got variations of different types of waves that you can be facing, initially, and then the bosses are not always coming up in the same order. They don't always have the same abilities. So that helps create kind of a little bit of unpredictability and kind of stave off repetition and boredom, I guess. Because, essentially this is an arcade game. It's very repetitive, and so it's nice that they kind of tried to find a way to vary it up a little bit. And so, just as in Whoa Dave, you collect coins that the enemies drop. It's always kind of a very paltry sum. Like, you're doing well when you can get a bus pass, usually, especially on the harder difficulties, the bunkers difficulty. I got like $3, and that was really, really good, and actually got me into the top 30 online for the scores. It also gave me kind of false confidence, because Bonkers is really like the hardest difficulty. It's really, really, really tough. And I got in that top 30 really kind of easily on the first or second try, but then I never managed to approach that high score again. And it kind of happened to me for a while in Pac-Man Championship Edition as well, where like the beginner's luck got me pretty far. And I didn't realize that it was beginner's luck, and I'm just like, oh, I guess not a whole lot of people even tried Bonkers difficulty, and that must be why I managed to climb up to that high on the leaderboard on my first try. But then I realized, like, oh no, I got like stupid lucky, and the game is probably more successful than I thought it is, and it's just that, I got lucky. Any questions?
So I played Woe Dave a bit. I know you played it more than I did.
Maybe. It does get old after a while.
It does. I mean, it was a very cheap game because it was very shallow.
And I think that the one of the mistakes that Space Dave did is that they launched it at $10, and that might have been a little bit too high for the what it has to offer. Because just like Woe Dave, it's a little bit slight, you know. And I played it a bunch. I played it for several hours. I probably got my $5 worth. I got it on sale. I'm not sure if I'm going to go back to it over and over again. And compared to something like Pac-Man Championship Edition, like it doesn't really measure up.
I don't know. I think the visuals are what's throwing me. It's got a very different kind of look.
Atari 2600 almost, but better than that.
Yeah, but normally when somebody does like Atari 2600 but better, because they don't actually know what 2600 games look like, which is to say just squares.
Yeah.
They screw it up in like the same way every time. But this almost looks like it's objects that are like paper puzzles, like not puzzles, paper puppets that are kind of like sliding around.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of what Atari 2600 games looked like on the back of the box when they didn't use when they didn't use real screenshots, because they used to do that.
Always?
They used to do that.
Yeah.
They used to never.
Always.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's kind of a theme from this developer, right? Choice Provisions, formerly known as Gaijin Games, like their whole shtick with Commander Video, the hero in their Bit Trip games, like has when you power them up enough in the first Bit Trip game, has like this Activision rainbow trailing it, you know, the kind of rainbow that you could see in a lot of on the Atari.
Yeah, the Activision
2600 covers of a lot of
logo,
Activision
right.
games. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so the stage I'm looking at now, the Galaga influence is way more clear. The one I was looking at before, that was like it was a lot more chaotic. Like there's stuff going on in different sections of the screen versus just kind of the same enemies moving around.
Right.
So it is
the chaos is one of the things that I'm not sure if it's good or not. Like the game is very, very busy, and when you do get a clump of enemies to by your side to helping you, you can kind of lose Dave in the middle of all that.
Yeah,
and it can get a little bit unfair. And also, I mentioned kind of randomness a little bit in the game progression, and it applies to not just the enemy formations, but also in the power-ups that you can get, because there are other power-ups. Like you can freeze the lava and then you can step on it. It's limited. Eventually it wears off. You can also get these options, basically, like these turrets that also help you shoot at the enemies, but those ones are impervious to bullets, and so they're permanent, at least until you die. And so those give you way more of an advantage than the freeze lava power-up. But sometimes you'll get a bunch of freeze lava power-ups when you don't even have lava on the screen.
Gotcha.
And even if you do, like it's time limited, so it's like one of the crummiest power-ups that you can get. So luck will play into how well you do in this game, and I guess it's less of an issue the more you play, I suppose. Like I don't know how to say this, but I guess like I don't know, on the bell curve, like eventually, like it doesn't
on the
really
average,
matter.
it's not bad, but you can get screwed by the luck.
Right, on a particular run, yeah, you can get screwed over. So
yeah, because the stage I'm looking at right now, Dave is fighting a giant clown face, but just the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. And there is multiple things of lava, and I have not seen a single opportunity to freeze that lava. Meaning the motion, That seems unfortunate.
Well, you can fill up the lava by letting enemies evolve and then killing them, and then you get a skull, and then you can, like, with one skull, you fill up the lava a little bit, but it's still dangerous to you, so it's just like the first step. 2 skulls, you pave over, so at least you don't get hurt by it, but then you don't get the tree bonus at the end of each wave of enemies, and then the 3rd skull, and you grow the tree again, and then, that's the way to get the highest scores.
I feel like you could have made up any one of those mechanics and just slid it into this conversation to see if we were paying attention. Just straight up lied about any of that. It's like, and then there's the trees. You have to, it's like, oh my, this game, like, I'm watching it happen, so I know you're not screwing with me, but like, it sounds like nonsense.
Well, yeah, it sounds like there's a lot, but I mean, like, it's just, like, there's maybe, like, it's got one of those, old school arcade instructions, kind of showing up if you don't touch the buttons, kind of thing.
The track mode.
Yeah, and you've got, like, there's 14 pages of an instruction, but they're not that complicated. They're pretty easy to assimilate. I don't know, like, we're like 45 minutes into the recording. Should I talk about Pool Panic?
Yes! Oh my god, yes!
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So, the last thing I'm going to talk about, and I didn't play it as much as I would have liked to, but it's kind of one of those games that you kind of chip away at bit by bit, and like, if you were to play it all at once, you might get sick of it a little bit, but just like taking it one level at a time, it's much more palatable and manageable. And that game is Pool Panic, and so it's this just completely wacky game from Adult Swim Games, and you're playing basically. This is a puzzle game at heart, but a puzzle game in that more in the adventure sense, I suppose, in that you're not usually matching anything. You're not. Also, you're not really. You're playing pool, but you're not really playing pool. Mostly, what you're doing is that you're kind of trying to figure out what the game wants you to do in the situation that it's putting you in. Like, you might have, like, the initial level does happen on a pool table, and you just have to sink the balls into the pockets. And the only wrinkle there is that one of the balls is kind of headstrong, I suppose. Like, it's just like refuses to budge intermittently, so you have to time your not your attack, but your
shot. Your shot.
Yeah, when you break the triangle, like, what's that called? The break? The breakout?
It's the break.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, you have to time your break at the right moment to shoot it, to sink it in the pocket. And then, once you've cleared all the balls on the table, then you sink the 8-ball, and then you sink yourself into that same hole, and then there's just this trippy kind of how did I do kind of screen coming up, and you're trippy, like, is not too strong a word. Like, you've got your cue ball just like floating in space and singing along to this really weird music.
It's psychedelic.
And meanwhile, it's just it's just kind of burping the trophies that you, if you got any, like, if you manage to clear all the balls in the stage, you get a trophy. If you manage to do it in the time, within the time limit, you get another trophy. There's also one for a certain number of moves. And that one I don't think I'll ever get a trophy for, because I am, just like in real life, I am terrible at this game. I'm just as terrible at this game as I am at billiards, at pool.
There's a sock you get for not falling into the hole yourself before you're done, or dying for some reason.
Right, I'm not sure I understand that. Is that a pool reference?
I don't think so. I think it's just weird.
No.
The only sort of pool billiards reference I know with a sock is an infamous scene in the British film Scum, where someone puts a bunch of balls in a sock and uses it.
No, that's not what this is for. This is
in young people's prison.
Of all the, I feel like that's a really dangerous activity to make available to prisoners. Basically, every component
yeah.
of billiards can be weaponized. It's kind of an amazingly poor decision.
It's like this week, guys. In general, pop, we're trying fencing. So let's,
we're gonna try a target shooting.
Yeah, that movie wasn't particularly endorsing the institution. I'll just leave it.
No, it's true. Of all the Adult Swim games, like the ones they've released, since they've gone into publishing, this is the one that most feels like something that could be part of their television lineup, because it's manic.
Yeah, but I feel like it would be like a very short cartoon, like, little like 3-minute clips, and then like something in between the longer shows maybe, because definitely that's kind of the way that these levels play out. Like there's 100 levels, but they're all very short, very contained, and it's just a matter of figuring out the trick in that level to complete it. So, like I described, like the most basic level, the first one, but then like you can go out, there's a world map, so there's like, then you go in the forest, and there's like camping themed stages. And so I did one where the trick was that there were these hidden balls that wouldn't come out of their tent until I raised the flag up the flagpole. And so, then the trombone or whatever rang, and like they all came out, and then I could shoot them into the pockets. And there were also raccoon balls. There were balls that were very raccoon-like.
There we go. It's like we're talking about tanukis here. What are we on?
Yes, kind of. They call them trash pandas, I think, in the game. And
that's a good name for them.
Yeah, and so they're always up in trees or up and, climbing up everywhere. And so you can't reach them. And you can finish the game without sinking them. But if you want to complete the game correctly, like you got to find a way to get them down. And the way to do that is not to just hurl yourself at the tree or whatever over and over again. It's to like hit the barbecue that's in the corner. And just like, like you make the meat patties just fly out and, fall into the ground. And so the trash pandas come down from the trees and go eat the patties, and then you can sink them into the holes. So there's one where I got stuck forever until I realized that, like, I was in kind of a pumpkin patch, and I sank the 3 orange pumpkin-like balls. But then there was like this raccoon that was outside the garden, which was in a pen, and I could see that there was like a chicken coop, but the door was closed. And what I had to do was to notice that one of this is tough for me. I don't describe farms very often in this show, but the fence had
a hole? What do you want here?
Yeah, well, it had a gnawed up post. Yeah,
okay.
A post.
Yeah.
God damn it. Yeah, so I had to notice that one of the posts was kind of half-eaten, and so you hurl yourself at it a bunch of times. It creates a hole in the pen. The raccoon goes into the chicken coop, and then, chicken balls that look like chicken fly out, and then you sink them, and then you sink the trash panda, and then, you did it. And it gets like more and more clever the more I go. Like there's a stage where it's just there's like this wheat patch, and I can't get into it, and I can see that there's like kind of a cat-like tail sticking out. And so what you have to do is you have to launch yourself at angles into the wheat patch, and then it becomes a game of kicks, if you remember that game. Mm-hmm. Like the arcade game where you're kind of just taking out pieces of the level while avoiding the enemies, and you kind of try to reduce the surface area that the enemies have access to without them touching the line that you're creating as you're cutting up the board.
Light cycles. You're doing light cycles with billiards.
Kind of, yes. Except that if they touch the line that you're creating, you die. They don't. It's the opposite of light cycles.
Oh no.
Yeah, so there's that going on. So I thought that was pretty clever. And yeah, like so the game keeps being pretty imaginative, and but the thing is, like the whole chicken coop thing, like I got stuck at that for a while, and it became frustrating. And so I feel like this is a game that's better played in small doses. Otherwise, you can kind of get sick of their sick of their shit.
You can't move around the overworld though and skip stages, right?
There is a certain freedom in what order you tackle stages. But the more the more stages you complete, the more open up. So yeah, like there is a
because the overworld for this game looks insane.
Yeah, it's pretty big, but fortunately, all you have to do is complete the stage. You don't have to go for the achievements to unlock anything, as far as I can tell. And I think that the review on our website, Nintendo World Report, also confirms that. Like, you don't need to clear all the time challenges to unlock whatever. So that's good. Like, you can do the bare minimum and still see the whole game.
I saw some of this game being played, and one of them was a biker bar. And I believe how you get the bikers to come out to where the holes are outside is by knocking over their motorcycles.
Huh.
It's like, oh, okay, this game is here, huh?
Yeah. No, it's pretty neat. There's a lot of touches, like in the background. Like your character just has always this goofy, crazy look, and you can mess around with people's stuff all the time, and there's a lot of funny little interactions like that that are optional, that don't really add anything, like that are not part of the strategy of the game, but they just they make you laugh. Like it's got a nice presentation.
Your camp example, like after he knocks them into the hole, they drop their hats, their scouting hats.
Right, and you can just walk to them and then you start wearing them. Yeah. No, it's very cute. It's very funny. It's
a little bit subversive in its humor, but like in a charming way.
Yeah, and it's pretty decently priced. I think it was less than 20 Canadian bucks, so it must be like 15, which is kind of on the low end these days, I think.
Yeah, it's 15 US.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of on the low end of indie games, I find, on the eShop these days. So that's good. It's a good price.
My favorite thing for this game is they describe it as the world's least realistic pool simulator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is incredibly accurate.
One thing I will say is that, like, I don't know how you clear the minimum number of shots challenges. I'm not sure if I'm ever going to try, because, like, I play this game just like I play a real-life pool. I just, like, keep missing, keep going, like, keep chipping away at the table until, there's nothing left. Like, just like, okay, shoot and miss and shoot and miss. And like, oh, okay, I finally sang something, and then, like, I play very casually. And so this game also, like, it's very hard to make a shot the very first time, and the controls are a little bit hard to pick up, because at first, like, you use the right stick to aim at the ball that you want to shoot, and then, like, if you hold it long enough, then you become locked on to that ball. And then, like, if you move the right stick, if you wiggle it some more, I guess, like, that changes the angle at which you're going to hit that ball. A little bit on the left, a little bit on the right. So that's good. Like, it's good control. And also, meanwhile, with the left stick, you can still move around. So that gives you a lot of options to just angle yourself just right to sink the ball into the hole. Except that in most cases, those goddamn balls are still walking around or running around. And so if you try to be very precise and to sink them, like, just right, to line them up just right to sink them, like, it's almost impossible. So I don't know, it's a tough game. And it's made... No, I guess I made my point. Yeah, it's tough to control.
It looks really good. It looks really fun.
Yeah, it looks cool.
I recommend it. I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, my finger is hovering over the buy button right now. It's like,
yeah.
Oh, do I need another game on the pile?
Of course you do, James.
God damn it!
You're in the wrong room to ask that question.
I know.
And you're probably not hearing them, but they've got wacky renditions of classical music as the soundtrack, and it's just like it's a constant like, where the hell? What is this tune? What is it? And also, why is it so weird?
Oh, that's gonna be some. That's gonna be some radio trivia nonsense.
Well, yeah, I guess considering Parodius isn't with us anymore, it's nice to know that something's picked up the mantle of doing that to you while you're playing a game.
It had to be a video game because Lord knows couldn't. Real life is. There you go.
I didn't get an invite to Parodius's wake, unfortunately. So
I think wasn't it called Otter Medius or something? I think that was it.
Yeah. You're right. Oh no. Oh, that's disturbing. All right, John.
Let's see. So since Neo Geo, the arcade classic archives,
the new hotness
is the new hotness. I got League Bowling, like I talked about last week.
Huh.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I was thinking this is obviously for Neo Geo, and you would think that because it's for Neo Geo, it was at the time much more advanced hardware than say the Super NES, and this looks a lot like a Super NES game. It's a bit better than a Super NES game. It's a little bit sharper, a little bit more colorful.
The color depth on this game is really good.
Yeah. But I was wondering what other bowling games were out there, and there's not a lot. There really
the
aren't
bowling games
many.
are coming in 3D because you had to render the pins.
Right.
And the pins exist in 3D because they get projected off in different directions.
Yeah, but even though it's like I just think of like all like the how many baseball games there were and stuff like that, and I was thinking surely there must be a whole bunch of especially on the Super NES, I was thinking surely there must be a couple of bowling games. But really, the only bowling game that I could find of note was Super Bowling, which was by Technos. And it doesn't really play like this at all. So this is a very arcade style split screen. It's meant you can play up to 4 players, but it has two players, 2 lanes displayed side by side. Right, so if you play, I only played single player, but so you play on in the left-hand lane, and the controls are very, very simple. You can move your bowler left and right in the lane, and then you also have a gauge that goes back and forth. It's the tried and true kind of thing where a meter goes back and forth left and right, and then you have to hit it in the middle to send your shot straight, like dead straight down the center. Right, so you can. So if you want to hit a ball that is in the far right corner, then you move your bowler over and then you hit the meter right in the middle and the ball goes straight, right? And you can also do curves. You can hook the ball, right? Stuff like that with the meter. So it's very, very simple to control. The games go by very quickly. There's not a lot of meat on the bones here. There's only 3 game types. There's regulation, which is just your typical 10 frames. Try to get the highest score. There is flash, which is a game type in which it has several right above the kind of scoreboard at the very back. It has scores that highlight. They're timed. So, they go across 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. And if you get a strike if you get a strike, whatever score happens to be lit up at that time is added to your score. And then there is strike 90, which I believe if you get a strike, you get 90 points extra. And then if you get a spare, you get 60 points extra. But that's it. That's it. And so you can
It's kind of nuts that we're already on League Bowling. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just not much to it. It's not bad. If you're jonesing for some sort of arcadey bowling game, then then it's probably worth the $8 that it costs. It does have online leaderboards. It does have, like every single hamster game of this type, it has the high score mode. It has the caravan mode, which is, of course, go for the highest score or go for the highest score in 5 minutes. Apparently, you can save your game. I have never done that because the games go by in literally about 2 minutes. I mean, it's not bad, but it's just very vanilla, and it amazes.
Yeah, one of the things that I was disappointed by when I looked at it, the page on the Nintendo's website, is that like the characters all look the same, except they've got different like hair color or something.
Yeah, player characters.
There's no personality at all.
Yeah,
this is not Punch Out.
Yeah, it's like I haven't played with multiple players. So I don't know if the characters actually change, because you can't select which character you want. You just play with one player, you play with the same guy every time. There's nothing even as extravagant as, oh, here's 10 different avatars, use a different one.
No, it's just the two with different colors.
Yeah, and that's it. So I mean,
and there's only 2 balls.
Yeah. I mean, you can change whether or not you want to bowl left or right-handed. Makes absolutely no difference. And you can change the size of your ball, which I guess would change the physics slightly, requiring you to maybe hit the meter, hit the strength meter. You also have a strength meter. That's the second meter that after you choose direction, you choose strength, which is just flat out. Hit the meter when it goes all the way over to the right for the strongest shot. So maybe if your ball is a little bit heavier, you have to do that in order to get the same results as you would for a lighter ball. But I mean, I never even changed it. I never even bothered. I just used what would be the 8-pound ball. There's just really not much to this. So I was expecting more. I mean, it's called League Bowling, but there is no league in this at all. Right? Like, I was expecting at least maybe there might be a tournament mode. But the thing is, it's not Well, the thing is, it's not a console game, though, right? So that's the kind of thing I came at it, I think, with a console mindset. I mean, this is really an arcade bowling game.
I mean, you could plug it into a Neo Geo if you wanted to, but ultimately, this is an arcade game. Yeah.
So, and I guess it's very strange. That's what makes the Neo Geo kind of fascinating to me, because these were games that you could play on console hardware, but they were arcade games. So there was no trying to pad the experience or anything like that you eventually saw in console games, right? Because they knew that people would be sitting on their couch for hours and hours. You definitely saw the gameplay evolution to pad out the experience and, all that kind of stuff.
They did pad the experience, but in a different way. They padded it by trying to create myriad deaths. Or in the case of League Bowling, to make, like you said, a game lasts 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. And this would have been a game that mid-90s SNK was putting out the multi-cart Neo Geo arcade machines.
Yeah.
This game was kind of a constant. It would usually be like a Last Blade, KOF, and then a Metal Slug, and then you'd have like the slot where it's like weird nonsense, and this was a frequent candidate for weird nonsense slot. Mm-hmm. My only real memories were of the weird split screen which the game employs.
Yep. By the way, this is a Neo Geo Max 330 Mega Pro Gear spec. By the way, that's what it says. That's what it says on the loading screen.
A Max 300. What does that even mean?
It's like, I don't even know. I guess that means
it's a 26 meg game. It's not a big game.
I guess that's what, 330 megabits.
It's got to be, because it's a 26 meg game.
Yeah, but that's the kind of bullshit
you're playing with fucking power, John.
That is the kind of bullshit that Neo Geo put in its marketing. It's like the more the random performance-y sounding stuff that they could throw at this at you, the better in their marketing.
I want to say the AVS box for that game, so if you bought it for their home console, I want to say the 26 megs is on the front cover twice.
Yeah.
It's the logo, and then it's the logo right next to the logo. It's amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
But this one may have actually come out on the Neo Geo CD at some point too. In what would be the biggest waste of a CD-ROM ever.
Yeah.
But it lets them cut out those hyper expensive cartridges.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's my memories of this game are pretty limited because, like I said, it was it was a candidate for being in one of those last slots on a Neo Geo hardware. It wasn't a constant. It wasn't. There's always a KOF on those things. There's always a Metal Slug on those things.
Yeah, for sure.
It's most like 2 or 3 or 1, whatever. But there's always one on there.
Mm-hmm.
My memories of this are like I said, the split screen stuff, and then the weird like really really cartoony animated characters.
Very strange. There's this kind of anthropomorphic bowling pin who looks strangely like the baseball for. It looks kind of strangely like the Cleveland Indians mascot in a weird way.
I don't. Oh well, I mean,
a little
he's
bit.
like a little tie, right, and a mask.
Yes.
Like, I'm pulling this from memory, so you're gonna have to bear with me a little. But like, yeah, it kind of reminds me of if you actually go bowling in real life.
God forbid.
Yeah, God forbid. On the screens above where they have the score, they'll have the dumb animations. Where it'll be like really bad CG pins like hopping out of the way of the ball, and then the ball turns into a bulldozer.
Yeah, almost like you see on a pinball machine.
Yeah.
Those kinds of animations.
To the point where it feels like they're parody, but they're not.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be like the pins are like wearing bandit masks and running away from a police car with the bowling ball driving it, and then it does like a J-turn and wipes them all out.
That's strangely specific, James.
I made that one up, but again,
I think you
can't be sure.
I think you should make a career change and become an animator for bowling animation.
It'll be the bowling ball flying down the lane, and you'll like quickly flash to be slightly turkey colored, and then it'll knock over all the pins, and 3 X's will show up, and it'll say turkey. And then when it stands up, it's a turkey.
I can see you. I can see you in the bowels of the next E3 hawking your wares as a bowling alley animator.
I don't think AMF attends E3, John. But my point is, like, a lot of the stuff in this game kind of reminds me of that. Like, those pins are like something you would see. It'd be like the pins are wearing bandit masks, and Spider-Man bowling ball swings down and knocks them all out.
And there's a lot of like kind of like just sort of weird speech in it, like "oh my gosh." Like
the SNK standard.
Oh, like let's bowl, and it's like okay, all right, let's bowl.
Let's bowl, John.
Let's bowl, spiky-haired SNK guy. All right, that's cool.
There's also like the weird, like she's almost like
she's a bimbo.
I was gonna go there. I was gonna go more like in like the person who holds up the round numbers in boxing.
Yeah, because that's not a bimbo at all. Yeah.
She's a professional, John.
All right, okay.
But
all
like
right.
it's
she's
just kind of there are many times where she's just kind of there, taking up half the screen, while the other half has your character like I don't know, DBZ posing, getting ready to throw the ball. It's weird. It's a weird fucking game.
It is weird. She's sitting there, and I'm just kind of like, okay, well, you're strangely dressed like a very buxom secretary in this bowling game. It's very weird, but hey, whatever. It's cool.
It's a weird game.
It's kind of a weird game.
They had a lot of screen to work with and couldn't figure out how to make bowling take up all of it, so they just split the screen.
I mean, that being said, it's not a bad game. It's just that there isn't much to it. Like if you could probably get it on sale, and you want something just on the go to like kind of like because the games are really really quick. I mean, you can just play a game like that. So it might be good on the go if you feel like, just kind of sitting there at the airport and you just want to play a couple games of bowling. You can go and do that. It does have, online leaderboards. Some of them aren't very populated.
It's a 4-player game, right?
But yeah. So yeah, and the way that works is I think it goes players 1 and 2 do their thing, and then players 3 and 4. So
so it's simultaneous?
It's simultaneous 2 players at a time though.
Okay.
So,
I honestly have never had anybody play this game with me.
Yeah.
So like he's not on the last blade. He's on friggin' bowling. I'll just wait for him to finish.
Yeah. Well, next time I see you, James, we can have a 2-player game of League
Baseball
bowling.
Stars 2, John. All day, every day. Let's do it.
Hey, it's fine with me.
Do you have an hour to kill? I'm an SNK nerd. What am I going to say?
Yeah, I mean, I'm buying these arcade classics games, so yeah, I probably do have an hour to kill, actually. Let's just be honest. Let's call a spade a spade.
Well, good news, John. There's 19 more KOF games came out from a hamster in the last since we started this conversation. So you're all good. All right, you got anything else?
No, that's all I got.
Cool. All right. Well, I am still playing Shining Resonance Refrain, but life has interdicted my ability to play video games this week and also host this podcast for at least a little bit of it. So I haven't been able to get too far into it. I'm about 25 hours in at this point. I think I was at 15 last week, so that should give you an idea that the gameplay time is scoped way down because I streamed for like 3.5 hours on Saturday, so... this game has gone full anime, like all the way in, just in there. And Saran pointed out in the Resetera talkback that I may have misrepresented her opinion on this game by saying, like, Saran might disagree that I think this game doesn't do much special. She actually kind of confirms that. She says basically along the lines of it doesn't need to do anything, unique. It's good at what it's doing. And I'll concede that point that it's like I spent forever last week saying I don't think the game is bad, but so I'm not going to go back into that refrain. The game is still doing what it was doing once we last spoke. It's just been doing it longer now. My stream audience got to see the awkward dating mechanics, which are so much fun. As you talk to these characters, eventually they'll just hang around town with you, and I guess you can forge relationships with them. And then there is some tangible benefit to that I don't entirely understand. But it's it's full anime at this point. The plot's complete nonsense. There's multiple layers of double crossing going on because it's the requisite for this stuff. There was a cutscene where I think they said the word dragon or a word with dragon in it somewhere in the neighborhood of 11,000 times, and I think my eyes started to glaze over. But it's like I said, it's perfectly effective at what it is attempting to do. But again, I'm gonna go back to my recommendation from last week and just say, like, look, I got this game dirt cheap. I got it with the Best Buy Rewards discount, the Gamers Club Unlocked. I had Best Buy Rewards stacked up, so that was like $10 killed off. I think I ended up walking out of there giving them like $25. And for that, it's been a worthwhile expenditure of money. But if you paid full price for this game, it is a cheaper game to begin with, I don't know. It's going to be a very much your mileage may vary game. I have started transitioning away from playing it on the TV and playing it in portable mode pretty heavily. Because a lot of times the combat is pretty easy, and I don't really necessarily need to be looking at it directly. Because the characters, so I talked about it last week. It's an open combat zone around your character, and you just kind of move around and attack. Your character does sort of auto target towards the closest enemy. So if you're not super attentive to controlling him, as long as you're tapping out attack patterns, he'll keep executing, or she'll keep executing, depending on who you're controlling. But that does mean that the combat can feel like a slog, and of course you can avoid all of it because it's on the battle screen. But it is what it is. It does look like the levels continue to rise with you. So like there's level scaling going on. I didn't mention this last week because I hadn't observed it yet. As I continued to run quests, I was getting increasingly high level and not advancing the plot. And I noticed that when I advanced the plot, everybody seemed to jump levels on me in more than you would expect from the game if you were just running the plot. So that's unfortunate because, I put a lot of effort in to be super powerful. Damn it, let me enjoy it. But even then, I with some modicum of strategy and employing the fact that the main character can transform into a dragon, and if you can combine it with these songs and stuff to give stat boosts, I'm regularly downing enemies that are 20 plus levels higher than I am. So it's not exactly a big deal if they're level scaling. You're still pretty goddamn powerful. So I'll probably finish that up this week. And then move on to some other stuff that I've got ready to go. And of course, we got to talk about Octopath, so I'm going to get on that pretty soon. And then we'll probably have somebody on who's further into that game to join us for the conversation in the upcoming couple weeks, because as I wrap up new business. Guillaume, you're going to be gone for a little bit, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going for probably 3 podcasts.
Yep.
3 weeks. I missed 2 weekends, but it just no. Yeah, okay. So probably I missed 2 recordings.
Okay. Hey, if you want to take the third one off, not a big deal. Just let me know. And
I'll be very disappointed in you if you do go, though, Guy. I mean,
he won't. Don't worry about it. We will schedule accordingly. So we're gonna have guests for at least the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, while you're gone, Guy, I think I'm gonna have to practice my.
Yeah, gonna talk about some Kirby games, are you?
Yeah.
Speaking of that, it's time for us to move on to email. So we're gonna take a break and we'll be right back. It's listener mail time. You can send your emails to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. I'm going to go ahead and read the first email because I haven't really, talked that much today. And honestly, that's better for everybody. But, I want to open the floor to this email. David writes, "Hey, RFN crew. Out of the following fan bases, which do you think is the worst? Metroid, F-Zero, Star Fox, Sonic, Earthbound, or Fire Emblem? Thanks, and keep up the great work." And before I open the floor up, this email and the answer that follows it is absolutely going to cause us to not keep up the great work. Because this email, its very existence has already spawned an arcing conversation about the creature known as Kirby. So I'm just going to open the floor to John so he can go nuts for about 5 minutes, or we'll just tune him out.
I mean, James, I'm perfectly calm. To me, the answer to this...
Last week you were not. You got incensed about fucking Kirby.
To me, I mean, the answer to this is it's just as plain as day. It's Kirby.
Which is one of the choices.
And Super Smash Brothers.
Which is also not one of the choices.
I mean, Kirby fans apparently like platformers that aren't challenging at all, and they like a character who is so unoriginal and so uninspired that the best that they could do is come up with a character that copies other characters' attacks. So, there you go. There's Kirby. If you like Kirby, you just basically like milk toast, I guess you could say.
It's not milk toast, John. It's not toast you soak in milk.
Doesn't that really describe Kirby, though? I mean, you like literally a pink circle. That's all I can really say.
It is true that historically Kirby was like some sort of placeholder sprite.
Yeah,
and
they
just went with it.
All right, so John, I'm going to challenge you.
I'm not wrong.
Yeah, there's some truth to it.
But it is true, but I'm going to challenge you on this.
Here we go.
What if I told you that somebody took the placeholder character and then created a character inspired by the placeholder character to lead their franchise? Isn't that even less creative?
Arguably, yes.
Okay, so why aren't you mad at Box Boy?
Because I just don't care about Box Boy. But that's the thing. Nobody cares about Box Boy.
That's not true. Kirby cares about Box
Kirby
Boy.
has some sort of irrational fan base who just loves it. It's like almost like this Hello Kitty-esque sort of kind of like disgusting relationship that they have with this character. That's just
what the fuck do you think they're doing to Kirby?
It's just disturbing. It's like they like him because he's so
wholesome
and harmless. It's disgusting.
So, in other words, in the Ghostbusters situation where Gozer shows up, John is not thinking of Kirby. That's the good news. Somebody might, and John will hate that person, but he won't think of Kirby.
I will not. What? He's pink and round. And I hate him.
I am looking up to the sky, waiting for a merciful God to smite me from this conversation, but it's not happening.
Now let's talk about now. Moving on to a merciful God. Super
There's more.
Super Smash Brothers fans. Now I'm talking. Now you can like Super Smash Brothers. That's totally cool. It's a great series. Has some great gameplay. We've had some good times, James. Gus Bellow fellows, all that kind of stuff.
We're
talking
this
about.
This feels like a Kanye. I'm gonna let you finish moment coming up. What's up?
We're talking about the Final Destination Fox no item crowd, and I know I screwed up that meme. I didn't say it in the right order, but the people that probably would get annoyed by that are the fans that I'm talking about. So
they would get annoyed that you screwed up a meme designed to make fun of them?
Yes, because they take it just that seriously. And this is a game that you should not...
That's pedantic.
And this is a game that you should not take seriously. You should not be saying, I want to take this game into a tournament. Just because
I take Gus Bellows into a tournament. We did, remember?
Well, I mean, certainly, but it would be a fun, lighthearted tournament, not the kind of hardcore.
I'm pretty sure there was a lot of swearing in that
fighting tournament that these fans demand, and they demand that you respect their hardcore fighting tournaments in Super Smash Bros. So
we're gonna get so many emails.
That's my
and
two.
the Kirby email is just gonna say hi at the top, and that's gonna be the whole email.
That's my two, and by extension, probably Star Fox. Yeah.
But are you just gonna you want to name some more? But fuck Mario fans,
no,
do it. I don't care.
I'm done. Earthbound also.
Zelda
sucks,
Zelda fans can get out.
Earthbound fans can kind of get it too, but whatever. Just please, somebody else.
at least that one's on the list of choices that we were offered.
I've said my piece.
We gave John a handful of franchises to pick from, or David did. I had no part in this email, and John immediately grabs two that aren't part of the conversation. And then just desecrates them.
They should have been on there. I mean, I just kind of, as an expert, I decided to, augment this question a little bit with necessary information.
I need some more information here. You've just defined yourself as an expert, but didn't feel the need to tell me as an expert on what. I need some categorization of your expertise.
Burning hatred of certain franchises, I would say.
That's a very specific expertise. Oh, all right. We have to follow that up. I'm just gonna run through them real quick, and and not in the order they were offered. I'm just gonna kind of go through them. I thought Fire Emblem fans. There's not that many of us, to be honest, and whatever. As they've gone deeper and deeper into the anime, maybe they got a little weird, but they've already pulled back quite a bit. Fire Emblem, whatever that thing was called, the remake.
Echoes, Shadows of Valentia.
Yeah, that one pulls way back on that stuff. It looks like Three Houses pulls back pretty far on that stuff. The mobile game is just a mobile game. You just have to deal with it. It's way in there. I think right now they're running the bikini contests again because fuck it. But that doesn't reflect on the fan base. That just reflects on what gacha games are all about. So we've been confronted over the years on this show by literally every other fan base listed in this email at some point or another. F-Zero fans, they don't confront us directly because they understand that Mr. EAD is an abomination. Like, we can say that and they're not going to get mad.
And I mean, there's only about 3 F-Zero fans left right now? Probably.
Left? What, did the rest of them die?
Well, I mean, they just abandoned the series altogether. I mean...
Oh, I thought it was more of a statement about it's just been so long.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Rose in the Titanic scene where she talks about how long it's been, and she's holding she's holding Captain Falcon's helmet. It's been 87 years.
Wow, that's
tosses it into the ocean.
That's evocative.
Draw me like one of your god awful sci-fi designs.
Draw me like Mr. EAD.
No. That's way more offensive than just drawing like one of the French girls. All right. But Metroid fans have gotten after me in particular, but I just don't like that franchise. It doesn't speak to me personally. I don't really ever come out here and denigrate it. So it's not a matter of that.
It has its ups and downs.
Star Fox fans, we haven't really heard that much from. We don't really hear that much from them in general. There are some people who the Star Fox fandom obviously has some stuff in it. Any franchise, the anthropomorphic characters is gonna any franchise at this point because the internet's a terrible place. but it's not a particularly loud fan base. Sonic fan base, however,
holy shit. Man.
I'm not even gonna go near it.
I don't know if they're horrible or great just because of their fan fiction.
I have read Sonic High School. I do not recommend it.
I mean I never
I do recommend it. I don't for legal reasons. I do not recommend it.
I mean, I never would have thought that I would have.
Sonic has a ball disease in that, by the way. Curious.
I was impressed that someone went in depth into the relationship that Sonic would have with Jesus.
That's common. And the thing is, like, Sonic is relatively wholesome. At least, it was, and so like a lot of kids had exposure to it. And so there's this weird
probably the wrong word.
There's this weird like conflating of like religious iconography in children with the things they like. And so sometimes you see this weird crossover of like children's character and the Lamb of God. And it's like, well, this is weird and I'm not comfortable with it as an adult. But as a child, like my heroes are Jesus, Sonic the Hedgehog, and then like the third baseman for their favorite baseball team. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, okay. I mean, you could do that. And I'm sure if you asked, 5-year-old me who his heroes were, it would be like 6 players from that 1990s Reds team, and then like some ridiculous, like, could be like, I don't know, Hawkeye from G.I. Joe. Fuck it, who cares? But I mean, there's that there. Like, the Sonic fan base produces some truly horrifying stuff. But I'm convinced that a lot of it at this point is tongue in cheek. Like, they know, and they've just gone to the extreme.
Yeah, I mean,
Earthbound fans though,
Sonic in and of itself is pretty great.
Earthbound fans can fuck right off.
Here we go.
I'm not gonna blow up. The only thing I'm gonna say is, like, I have explained on the show multiple times why I don't like Earthbound and how far I've gotten into Earthbound. It's like, it does not appeal to me in the slightest. We had at one of our panels, somebody was like, you don't understand Earthbound. I'm like, no, I do. I just don't care. I don't think it's a particularly mechanically sound game. It's a weird game. But so is that, what was that DS game that came out that was like, it's like Earthbound because it's weird. And it's like, yeah, but it doesn't play particularly well. Metroid fans, though, are the winner. Probably didn't expect that because, like, I was soft on them earlier. And the reason is this. Nintendo had to announce Metroid Prime 4 because they knew if they announced the remake, Samus Returns, and didn't announce Metroid Prime 4, it would cause a scene in this fan base. And we know they know that because they basically said it this year when they didn't talk about Metroid Prime 4. They're like, yeah, we talked about it last year because we kind of had to. Now, they got a really good Metroid game. They did. I mean, Greg, you played it. You liked it quite a bit.
Yeah, it reviewed well in general. I mean, my opinion is just one. It's not.
Sure.
And there's people who didn't like it so much. Or, of course, there's a diversity of opinion on there, but broadly, it was quite nicely received.
Yeah, like that game but they had to announce another game simply because of the first game. Here's the thing. There was a thread just on Resetera just like a week ago. It probably wasn't that. It's probably 2, 3, or 4 days ago. This is a fairly common occurrence where the quote was, they should still fire Sakamoto despite Samus Returns because of Other M.
Oh, yeah. There's objectionable. To be honest, I think if I was going to pick something that's really objectionable, I would pick the reaction to Federation Force. It's a lot worse than that kind of is the background to what you're talking
objectionable
about.
In that it wasn't harsh enough?
Well, come on,
here's the thing. Like, they got... There was this weird backlash in the Metroid front. Like, you're not giving us a game. Here's a game. It's not the game we want.
Yeah, it's not the game we want, James. I don't want Federation Force. I don't want that.
John, the number of Metroid games basically tripled in a 5-year window.
Okay, the 3DS game was really good.
The series needed a break.
That's totally cool, but give me some console love over here, James. That's all I'm asking. I'm
So
not asking for a miracle.
This was a situation where people were like, they need to get rid of Sakamoto. Sakamoto fucking directed and wrote Super Metroid Fusion Zero Mission. And he was the producer on Other M. Excuse me. He also wrote Other M. He's the producer on Samus Returns. Like, okay, he made a bad game.
Yeah, it happens.
Chill the fuck out. Seriously, chill the fuck out. But then, yeah, the reaction to Federation Force was embarrassing. Like, it was. I get that it's not the game you want.
Hey,
and I get that it's like
it was a tone deaf release from Nintendo. I'm sorry. It's been 10 years. Nintendo knows full well that people have wanted Metroid Prime 4 for the longest time. And they foist that on the public. That's garbage. Now,
okay.
That game, it's probably okay, but...
It is okay.
Wrong game at the wrong time.
But the reality of the situation is that, like, that reaction was... I mean, we got some emails during that period that were like...
Oh, people were hot. They were hot.
What the fuck? Calm down. I've seen people take shots at Tanabe, and it's like, what? Why? Like, what did he do? Like, what do you? Yeah, he was a producer on Federation Force. He also produced a billion other games that are really good. He since 2013. Do you want to guess how many games Tanabe's produced?
Quite a few with some of the other Western developers as well as Retro, right? He goes Tropical Freeze.
Lots.
Wow. Oh, you're not going to be able to name them all. He's produced 15 games since 2013. 15 fucking games! And everything from Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon to Tropical Freeze to the remake of Returns to...
Yeah, but anything that has kind of a Western-facing component to interfacing with Western developers, and Tanabe seems to be the point man on a lot of that for Nintendo.
He worked on the Dylan games. He was a supervisor on Paper Jam. Dude does work.
Yeah, he's done 16 actually. 16 since 2013. Yep.
It's nuts. It's just like, slow your roll, Metroid fans. That pun was not intentional, but it works. Like, Nintendo has been telling you why they hadn't made a Metroid game, and no one should have been shocked there was not a Metroid Prime game on the Wii U. Like, because they told us the Wii U was basically. When did we first hear about NX? Like really early in the lifespan of the Wii U.
Maybe 2 years into the Wii U.
2014.
Yeah. Yep. 2 years in.
Yeah. So like at that point, like once I said we're getting out, like you should not anticipate a Metroid game at that point on the Wii U. Like it's done. That ship hath sailed. Mm-hmm. So it was just like, okay, calm down. I know the franchise has been sitting for a while, but like Fire Emblem sat forever. I mean, it sat a really long time. The last one was what? Radiant Dawn? Like it's okay. It'll be all right. But that kind of like, man, Sakamoto's got to go. Tanabe doesn't know what he's doing. Nintendo hates Metroid. It's like, calm down, please.
It's like, no, Nintendo hates F-Zero. Come on.
Yeah, well, to be fair, Mr. EAD is in F-Zero.
Oh, God. No, I mean, I'm sure this is, this is meant in one or two ways. Either just to, just sunder us from all the listeners, or meant to be in good fun and meant to be amusing. But there's a serious point somewhere here about the fact that, first of all, fan bases are not monoliths. If you identify with a fan base, whether it's a sports team, entertainment properties, various types of games, all that, and the internet sort of has, when I was young, I might have made the mistake of thinking like, I'm a fan of this. I'm sure, broadly, we all think somewhat alike, and then the internet came along and showed me you are so wrong about that. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, and even if it's in some case, might be the you got into it at the same time as other people. Some of the same reasons, but you still see things really differently. Even some of the more niche fan bases that are included here, in terms of from the point of view that fewer people have played the games in those series than say for instance Earthbound versus something like Sonic. There's still a breadth of people that love those games. For they love them for different reasons. They see them differently. So the idea that you could just say, oh well, this entire fan base is worse than some other entire fan base, or it's just pretty damn silly. And it's why you get things like with Zelda games might change a bit, like from installment to installment. So it's like, oh, this one's got a more open structure and this one's got a more linear structure, and people will say, oh well, they complained when they changed the structure of that, and then when they changed it, when they didn't change the structure, but when they did change it, people complained. It was like, there's millions of people in that fan base. They're different people, and people pipe up when they're pissed off. Like it's not really
answer the question, Greg.
It's not really that hard to.
Who do you hate?
The point is, you don't just say, "Oh yeah, this entire bunch of people that are all different." Yeah, I'm just gonna say they are this gradation of bad. It is, in all seriousness, it's a fucking ridiculous question. It really is. And I find the choices kind of interesting because they seem to be choices for fan bases that have endured droughts of games to a large degree. Fire Emblem.
I think it probably makes them more
salty,
acidic.
Well, maybe, but you could also say it makes them more admirable. These people really love these games because it's like, even if you go through stretches where there aren't any games, there's been no drought of Sonic games. The only question is whether there'd be drought of any worth playing at various points. I'm not making a comment on that one way or the other, but certainly the people within Sonic fandom sometimes seem to suggest that there's been rough patches with that. But with Fire Emblem,
and we've talked about in the past with the Sonic, there's really two very distinct camps of Sonic.
Well, and it's probably more than two at this point. You're talking about an enormous.
Sure.
It's been around for like a quarter of a century. People got into it at different points for different reasons. They have different perspectives on it.
There's a generational divide. Is more.
Oh, I'm sure,
that divide.
I think we're probably getting to a point where you can almost lay another one on top of that. Because,
sure, but they've not really deviated from what they've been doing since. There's been variation on it, but there's the 2D. There's people who are like, the 2D Sonics are what I care about, and there's people who really care about what they've done as the characters have evolved in the 3D ones. And those 2D ones really haven't had anything until Sonic Mania rolls around.
But it's like, Metroid, you had the 8-year gap between Super Metroid and the Prime Fusion revival, and then the kind of big gap after Prime 3. F-Zero, we're still in the middle of it. Star Fox has gone through that kind of patch without an original game between GameCube and Star Fox Zero. Earthbound, obviously, Mother 3 took ages to come, and then it didn't even get localized, and then that was ages ago. And it's like, okay, so these people that actually really love the stuff, we have to pick that they suck? Like, no fucking way.
Answer the question.
I just did. No, that's your answer.
Oh, it's not. Nobody follows directions here. John picks fucking Kirby, which isn't one choice.
Well, I gotta say as a side note,
oh, good. You piss someone else off? Go for it.
Well, I gotta say that Greg's Bill's fan fiction is excellent. It's yes. Wide Right. It's called Wide Right, a Jim Kelly love story.
The fan fiction would be
so it's
John, you just
fantastic.
The fan fiction would be that it went through. Even I'm not fucking cynical enough to write a fan fiction where it just misses by more.
It's a story of love and football. It's very eloquently written, Greg. I admire your work.
But yeah,
what is this podcast?
If you want to see how if people diverge,
why do you all listen to this?
Look at other people that support the same sports team as you, and we ain't monoliths. We are not the same, and that's fine. but that also means you can't just say fan base X is worse. As much as we all might say, oh, the Eagles fans booed Santa Claus, what a bunch of arseholes. It's just like, I'm not going to run into an
the
Eagle
only
fan
base that has a categorized video evidence of booing Santa.
I know, it did, but I'm not going to run into an Eagles fan and say, well, this man must be an arsehole.
That is a distinction that they alone hold. And yeah, I mean, you're right. I'm obviously just basing it more on what interactions have we had with them, and like the like they need to fire the people making these games. I've only ever seen that out of the Metroid fan base, which is upsetting. Like Other M is this black spot that never be washed away.
I'm sure there's plenty of, you want to talk about generational divide, I'm sure there's some people that don't like the direction that Fire Emblem went in, with its
totally.
rebirth, that get pretty upset about it. But again, I mean, that's a component of the fan base, and it's only a fraction of those people that are going to feel the need to vent about it on the internet or whatever. You can't make sweeping generalizations about that.
No, I don't think I've ever seen the terminology go that far on this, but there's definitely people who are like, this isn't what I want. This isn't the Fire Emblem. This is not my Fire Emblem. Mega Man fans are probably the most abused, but that's a different question.
I've stayed silent for most of this conversation, and I missed some parts because I must admit I was looking up on the internet. Because as
are you looking at Sonic fan art?
No, as I've mentioned on this show, some of my formative internet experiences were on the IGN boards.
Oh no!
And
God.
I was looking up for my. I guess my answer to the question is the Metroid fan base, and more specifically myself, from 10 years ago. And I was trying to look up this post that I remember seeing pretty recently, but now I can't find it. It seems to be gone, or maybe I'm just not looking for the right thing. But I was basically expressing the same thing that John expressed earlier about it's not what I want, but it was about Metroid Prime Hunters. And there was this dude calling people who were unhappy with Hunters elitist for not being satisfied with it. And I just launched into a passionate defense of the purists. The Metroid formula, and I just wanted to do a dramatic reading on this podcast. Unfortunately, I can't do it. All I have is this indirect reference to it. So this is in a World of Goo thread, and this dude is saying. This dude is saying that he's losing hope in hardcore gamers. That's the title of the thread. And he's saying that, I'm losing... I hear how World of Goo is awesome and getting high scores, has great graphics, as good as most retail games. I look it up, and it looks like a low-end DS game. Not to mention all the hype over simplistic games. In a game like Conduit, you all say whatever. We will see. Wow, I'm really puzzled. So, So apparently So this is that dude, and so I reply, way to judge a game without playing it. Hell, if you can't trust our word now, I guess you can't trust game reviewers either, seeing as it's the third best reviewed game this year on all systems. I hope this is a joke post, otherwise you're just a moron. Edit.
Are you sure? Are you sure you weren't responding to me from the Nintendo World Report forums about 2008?
Maybe.
All right.
So in an edit, I say, "Oh yeah, he's that kid, the one who claims Hunters is the best, and the people who don't like it are quote unquote Metroid elitists."
It's awesome.
I shouldn't have picked this email. I knew the danger. I didn't realize this was going to be a venting of our personal histories.
That's the thing. There's always a point. There's always a point with game forums
where you should kill this email.
Well,
yes, there's that
where you're the asshole.
Where you're the asshole, and then you have that full thing where you realize you're the asshole, and then you're like, I'm never coming to this forum again.
Or you say, I got to dig in.
Yeah, and I got to do a dramatic reading of the stupid stuff that I wrote 10 years ago. But I just. Anyway, I guess my overall point right now would be, the worst fan base would be the one that needs to chill, which is like all of them. And I guess I'm directing that at myself from 10 years ago, and also all the people.
I was sure he was going to say the worst fan base is always yourself.
Well,
it's
also,
true.
I mean, yeah, like hopefully we all learn and grow and become better people. And I hope that I don't call people moron on the internet anymore. So I think that's growing. I think, and I hope that, every kid on the internet out there, on gaming forums, who's not being all, what's the word?
Cordial?
No, extremized? Fuck, what's the word?
I don't know.
Being made an extremist by,
radicalized?
Radicalized, yeah. Who's not being radicalized right now by various groups. Can't just learn to chill.
ISIS? What are you talking about? Where are we going
I'm thinking
here?
about Gamergate.
Oh, I thought you were like ISIS is trolling the Sonic the Hedgehog forums.
Anyway, just in general,
Jesus.
just chill. Like, Metroid Prime Hunters was not the end of the Metroid franchise, and in fact, today, you can't go out without, hitting your foot on a Metroidvania game. So,
It's true.
things change. The gaming releases are a cycle. The developers who have your age, will end up making the games that you grew up with because they grew up with them and they have the same, love and affection for them that you do. And so, nothing's gone forever, and just chill.
Just look at the messenger. That you'll like the games that you like will happen.
Also, P.S. Sure. Death is certain. So.
Yes.
Oh, we hadn't mentioned that this week. I'm glad we brought it back. It's been
did.
a whole.
You literally said that death was our fifth chair.
Yes.
Well, no, I said that was a discussion about do you want to die. John just made it clear that even if you don't want to, it's still going to happen.
Yeah, the specter of death is still hovering
We need
over
a fucking different email. John, read another email.
All right. Okay, moving on.
God damn it.
Moving right along. James Jones from California. James Jones, obviously a plant. Hey, RFN crew.
Yeah, I created an alias and then used my name to do it.
Wiley was at E3.
Hey, RFN crew.
Playing the long con.
It's just so sideways. I emailed you nearly a year ago and thought it was about time to send a second email your way.
Thank you.
There are now 2 Nintendo characters with sentient headgear in games released 12 years apart, Link and Mario. With this apparent, in capitals, pattern, I predict in 2029 another Nintendo character will have a game with another form of sentient headgear. Who will it be and what will the gimmick be? Thanks for always putting on such a great podcast. I find myself constantly refreshing my podcast app every hour on Sunday afternoon just to see if I missed the release of the RFN podcast. Stay awesome.
Oh, God. He's never going to hear us answer his email because he'll have bailed out sometime in the last one.
This was from you, for sure. You're just like, hey, that James guy is amazing. I'm pretty sure that's like a postscript on this mail. But anyways.
It's not. So, first off, if I wanted to talk about headgear in Nintendo games, I would just put it in the show rundown and say, hey guys, we're going to talk about heheadgear in Nintendo games. I don't need to write a fucking fake email. This is Sarah from Iowa City.
Whatever. I just know how your brain works. You're a mastermind.
It's been taken over by a sentient hat. Yes, that's the point.
Head goal, James.
I am the next character that will have a sentient hat.
Also called James Jones.
It's very confusing when we're both in the same room together. All right, so John, you seem to be full of piss and vinegar today. Who's gonna have a hat that talks?
Who's gonna have a hat that talks? Let's see.
And why are they wearing? I'm gonna add to it. Why are they wearing that hat?
Why are they wearing that hat?
There's an obvious answer that I have left for you, and I am shocked you haven't picked it up already.
I don't know. You're kind of putting me on the spot here. An obvious answer. Well, now I'm.
Don't overthink it.
I don't know. Come back to me. Now you got me freaked out.
All right. Now I have to not use it, so I'll go ahead and give one that's not that one, although it is important. So obviously Mario had Cappy. Bowser's hat may be semi-sentient. It's a little bit unclear.
Yeah.
And then of course Link had, what was the name of that hat? The Minish Cap. That's the name of the game. Although that's not really the name of the hat.
Eslo, wasn't it?
Eslo, yes. Eslo is a Minish who was turned into a hat. Because like the magic users in the Legend of Zelda franchise have this very strange way of getting their way. Like just kill him. Just kill. Don't turn him into a talking duck hat. Just kill him. So what Nintendo character needs a sentient hat? He could run through all the franchises, and you might struggle a little bit to find one that really works. Because like Little Mac could have a hat, but that's not regulation. But I think the thing that needs sentient hats is Excite Truck 2. The trucks themselves stay the same. If you played Excite Truck and you were on like the Nintendo World Report forums, like at some point somebody isolated the polygonal head of the driver. I'm going to say that's not relevant. I'm going to say the hat is driving the car. And I could say this is important because Rocket League has made a fucking fortune selling you hats on cars.
This is true.
This is true.
And so what if Excite Truck also sold you hats on cars, but those hats talked? The other option is, of course, that we get Mario and Luigi partners in hats, and the hats are themselves.
Yeah, instead of the babies,
also,
it's just the hats. Yeah.
Yes, that also wear hats. Guillaume?
I'm still looking up IGN posts. I'm sorry.
Jesus Christ!
I think it's got considering most people tend to sort of construct the trinity of Nintendo, Mario, Metroid, Zelda. It's got to be Samus, and so it's kind of like Corruption, but this time the phase on has only affected a helmet, and it's become a sort of snarky character that makes outrageous quips and come-ons to Samus, and the Metroid fan base will say, "This is what I wanted," and everyone will be happy.
Sakamoto is a genius.
Isn't that? I think that Samus might have been the first one with a new hat, because like wasn't that like the direction that Retro Studios got, like from Miyamoto. I don't know if the story is apocryphal or not, but like supposedly Miyamoto said like she needs to change her face or something. Like she. God damn it! I need to look this up.
They changed the way she looks between Prime 1 and 2.
No, but like basically they said that they came up with the visors because Miyamoto said that she needed to switch heads or something. God damn it. I need to look this up. I'm sorry.
So Miyamoto, got to say it's like Miyamoto's like David Lynch in this, because he just says very sort of oblique things that you interpret however you want. And
I'm going to help workshop your Samus idea here. So Samus arrives on.
To be fair, just quickly, if any Metroid character were to have a sentient hat, it'd be Adam. If you see his hat when he was alive and in the military, it is spectacular.
Okay, so sorry, I do have the story here.
Okay.
So there's an interview with the developers of Metroid Prime series over at Retro. So Mike Wicken likes to tell a story about Mr. Miyamoto asking us during the early design phases of Prime 1, quote, "What would it be like if Samus had a bug's head?" Unquote. So that's Brian Walker, producer. And at the time...
Is that like some auto-generated writing prompt?
I don't know.
Is this
it's
an improv
Miyamoto.
class?
Maybe Miyamoto is a auto-generated, walking prompt.
It's Nintendo improv class. All right, you're Samus, but you have a bug's head.
Right.
Go.
And so Mike Wicken says, and at the time, I remember going back to our office and saying, switching heads, what does that have to do with Metroid? And, Walker says he wasn't asking if she had the head of a fly. He was talking about the mechanic of altered perception as a whole. And from that, the visor system came to be, where Samus could be different things with different visors and use that as a puzzle-solving element. So yeah, basically, they came up with Cappy way before, Mario Odyssey.
Nintendo's just stealing ideas
again. It's the exact same thing. Anyway, sorry for this tangent.
So I want to help workshop your idea, though, Greg, because I think this is important. Samus arrives on a planet. She's in her normal suit, and just like always, the various suit gets broken. But she stumbles across a Chozo shrine where they've just got stuff that mysteriously fits her. And but as opposed to having a new helmet, it's a bolo, and a bowler hat, and it talks. And as you said us all kinds of rude and inappropriate things. But it can't be a helmet because that'd be boring. So it's just got to be like this black bowler cap on her head the entire game, and you can upgrade it. It changes colors or whatever. I think the helmet is such a '90s thing. Who needs oxygen? Your hat can handle it for you. Mario was fine with just a hat, so why can't Samus be? It's just science.
Because Metroid is a serious game for serious gamers.
That's right. And serious gamers wear bowler hats.
Yeah.
It's a grim
John?
expression.
It's proof. Proof. Bowlers or fedoras, either two.
Oh, no.
I would say not really a Nintendo character, but I would love to see Solid Snake have a talking hat.
Yeah, to be
Just
fair,
because-
if there was one series that would, there's probably like Nano Machine's hat, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
That would totally
It's
happen.
the hat's powered by orphan brains or something ridiculous.
Yeah, I would really just like to see Solid Snake, but like a really, really like goofy, stupid hat that just said the dumbest shit.
And you still have to talk to it through the codec, even though it's literally on
Yes.
his
to call
head.
it. Yeah.
Yes, I want him to talk to the hat through the codec, and
And it's
with
just
a
like the
lot
picture is just the hat at the top of his head.
Yeah, so he's on there twice.
with a lot of dot sort of responses to the hat's quips.
Snake, there's poison gas in this room. I know, but how are we going to get through it? Well, I'm a hat. I don't care.
I don't care. Just put me on
That's a
your
good
head
point.
and let's walk.
So I was queuing you up, John, because I was hoping you'd get Steve Hewitt.
I was I was thinking about that. but
Turns
I
out
hate-
he
I
was
know you were
wearing.
thinking about that,
I hate to always go to that series. I was trying to,
but this one's a good one.
I was thinking about it, but I don't always want to go to Disaster Day of Crisis, but my mind always does.
Because here's
That's
how
the
you play that one.
problem.
So Steve gave Ray a watch to take to his sister.
And then he hid it up his backside in the POW camp. That's where
Right.
this is going, right?
Yep.
Christopher
Yep.
Walken.
Yep. What if instead he gave him a hat, and Ray?
it's going to be possessed with
Oh,
a
it's the
spirit.
soul of Steve.
Yeah.
The soul of Steve Hewitt. I can't argue with it. It's kind of brilliant.
But Ray doesn't know that until he puts it on, and he only puts it on because he has to keep it safe while he's running from the barrists.
And to be
And
fair,
then he starts-
it's one of these things you could play it two ways. In one way, it's sort of like screwball comedy horseshit, and on the other way, it's just Ray's coping mechanism because that day would drive anybody stark raving mad.
Exactly. And so the idea is that nobody knows if everybody thinks Ray's crazy because only he can hear Steve
Yeah.
because he's the one wearing the hat.
So it's kind of
obviously.
like Fight Club sort of thing.
Yes,
But at
absolutely.
the end, you could play it like
And when the
ridiculous,
meteor's coming in, you get the cut frame of a cock, just in there for now.
So I wasn't gonna go there. What I was gonna say is the grand reveal at the end is what's Steve's? I can't remember Steve's sister's name. Miss Hewitt finally gets the hat and thinks Ray's a complete fucking lunatic, and puts it on. And then all of a sudden, she starts hearing Steve.
Wow.
The whole game you've been set up thinking that Ray's just lost his fucking mind, and like when he talks to the mayor's like, "That crazy son of a bitch is gonna save us all," but. We need to get him some help once this is over. And at the very end, like the audience finds out that no, he was right all along.
It's kind of a reverse Spec Ops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of the whole like, oh, you think you've been doing good all this time, but you were going crazy. You thought you were crazy all this time, but you were doing the right thing. It's kind of it's comforting in a way. Yeah.
Even Ray
Life
thinks he's
affirming.
losing his mind, but at the end, he takes the hat off and he doesn't hear him anymore.
Wow.
Maybe I
deep.
finally beat my demons. No, you just gave that curse to somebody else, Ray. You bastard.
Wow.
You got anything?
Nothing except that John's obsession with Disaster Day of Crisis makes me think that maybe all Kirby needs to do to win him over is to have this gripping storyline between Kirby and Meta Knight, and Meta Knight giving Kirby a watch and then, dying tragically, and then go find my sister.
Yeah.
I thought you were just going to say
yeah.
he just needs to eat Steve Hewitt.
Maybe it's Meta Knight a sentient hat.
As opposed to falling into a volcano, he's just falling into Kirby's mouth.
Or maybe just this time.
Oh, you're gonna top that? Okay, go for it, John.
Maybe this time he accidentally exhales and Steve falls in to the magma.
Oh no!
Think about it. And then he's haunted. Why did I exhale? Why did I exhale? Of course, he wouldn't be saying that because Kirby doesn't actually talk. But you know,
he would just let out a very sad "ay ay ay."
Yes, exactly.
It's basically the start of cliffhanger, but with Kirby.
Yes, he's gonna be haunted. Maybe you're right. Maybe that would bring me in. I mean, it would just be depth to his character that I just don't see right now. But you know, maybe I just want Kirby to go through a little bit.
You just want the gritty reboot of Kirby.
I don't necessarily I just want him to go through
Kirby training day, is what you're telling me.
He's so happy-go-lucky. That's what I'm saying. He just needs to go through some shit. I want a Kirby. The Kirby that I want is the Kirby that's seen some shit. That's what I'm saying.
Were you in the shit?
Greg, can you read the last email? I'm only going to do it because there's relevant news.
Okay, with David writes, "Hey RFN crew."
Same David, by the way.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
There's been much Davids this week.
Whoa, Dave. Yeah.
With the recent updates to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe adding Labo support and the Breath of the Wild Link costume with the Master Cycle Zero, do you think Switch will even get another Mario Kart that is its own? What do you want to see in a new Mario Kart? Or do you think Nintendo should give Mario Kart a break and give another racing franchise a chance to shine? Thanks and keep up the good work.
I just want to mention that David completely forgets that there's supposed to be a Mario Kart coming out on cell phones.
Yep.
But, can hold that against him because apparently Nintendo also has forgotten.
Nintendo regularly forgets the games they have promised in their mobile division.
They have to I guess they just have to keep
Zelda game too, remember?
They have to keep telling the investors that it is coming. That's the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I only included it this week because today they announced a new Labo kit. Focused around driving, coming out in September, I think.
Yeah.
What do they call this kit? The
vehicles kit. Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's that steering wheel they showed way back during the reveal and a couple other things, which I assume will find its way into Mario Kart support. And if there was an F-Zero game, which there won't be, it would also be featured. But I don't see any reason to make another Mario Kart game this generation, because for the majority of people playing it, this is their first time playing this game. It's not.
Well, that's true, certainly. Although it did sell, remarkably well, given the poor sort of soil offered to it by Wii U. But at the same time,
if you didn't own a Wii U, it's new to you.
The incentive would be, I guess, to some extent, how much could it sell? Because it is, Mario Kart games sell so remarkably well at this point, especially globally, that. That is a very sort of, there's a lot to turn down if you would just say, because of course in the old days, because they were managing multiple platforms at once, and then they would at least put one Mario Kart on each platform, they tended to come along sort of every 2.5-3 years. And that was that's the sort of revenue that they got out of Mario Kart as a franchise, was on that kind of cycle. Now, assuming that there isn't going to be any kind of major revival of the 3DS with like completely original content or some other secondary platform, and it's all sticks to a single platform or family of systems. Then you come to the point where it's like, okay, well, we certainly don't need to put a Mario Kart on here because, as you say, it's done the business, it's done what it needed to do for it help drive adoption, and then it continues to sell for people who are perhaps now or in the future buying the system for other reasons, and it's just the kind of you get the Mario Kart game to go with it too. But at the same time, do you turn down the additional revenue that could be generated by a new game? I mean, that's kind of tough to do considering the power that it's shown.
I think part of the reason people are willing to just jump on a Mario Kart game when it comes out, though, is there's this implicit understanding that this is the Mario Kart game.
Sure, but still, they did still come around every 2-3 years. I mean, now everybody would have each platform. Obviously, there's a dedicated band of Nintendo people that will have would buy everything that they put out over at least a so many year period. But yeah, I mean it's in terms of their bottom line, that's kind of the history there. So it's a change either way, really, isn't
Right.
it? If they don't put one out, you could say, oh well, it's sticking to the one per system, but it's not sticking to that sort of 2-3 year cycle. Whereas if they do put another one out, then you're breaking the one per system. So it's just this sort of awkward transition that from where we were, the kind of equilibrium we were in for such a long time, where you had Game Boy alongside NES and Super NES, and Game Boy Color along N64, and GBA alongside GameCube, and then DS and Wii, and your 3DS and Wii U. It's a long time, and that seemingly has come to an end, and these are some of the weird kind of transitions that have to happen now.
Yeah, I would be curious though if keeping that game alive is important, because they've effectively de facto gassed that game by now charging for their online.
Is Guillaume going to object to that?
No, I don't care. So
is he in the Angry Dome? Do we know where that is?
Have we got I had a lot of support.
It's somewhere
by the
between
way.
the first. No, you had support from somebody at a cable call center who are never right about anything ever. So as a consequence,
Wow.
I am right.
No, but other people have all said VOD is not a thing.
It is absolutely.
Do you know what he means? If you know what he means, then that is good enough. Let live and let live.
Sure.
But
chill.
Regardless.
Yes.
The thought that I roll back to is keeping that game unified allows them to continue to use it as to posturing for their online platform. But it also, that by having that be the game in the franchise, they could, if they wanted to, continue to devalue it as a base game to sort of drive bundles or to drive hardware adoption. And it comes with Mario Kart. But they could then turn around and try to make that money back by running that 2-year cycle with hey, here's a big DLC push that adds a bunch of content to the game. We don't necessarily have to build the game from scratch and redesign all this stuff, and we don't have to make another version of Rainbow Road. They could say hey, we've added 3 more courses, or we've added another tournament, we've added a couple more racers or whatever,
and we've remade a different version of Rainbow Road from a previous game.
Yeah, Rainbow Road 6 in this game. And they could then continue to make money without having to build a brand new base game. And that to me would let them repurpose those resources that would normally be, okay, this team's going to go make the next Mario Kart.
Well, that's the other thing, isn't it? It's kind of in terms of the question of do you leave that revenue on the table? I guess the other part of it is what can you do with the development resources if you are content to kind of let Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, perhaps with some updates, kind of serve its function. What can you take those development resources and spin those into if you don't do a new Mario Kart, and how much could that generate? And that's kind of an interesting question. It's difficult in terms of the notion of letting another racing game have a chance to shine or whatever. It's a nice thought, but I don't know how much from a commercial point of view. It's very difficult to imagine anything being able to do what Mario Kart can do in terms of numbers. So I get it make more sense as a sort of complementary thing, where you kind of looking to sort of appeal to people. Oh, if you liked Mario Kart, try this, and you're probably talking about a fraction of the
Sure.
fan base that actually likes that. But in terms of people that would make Mario Kart, I guess it's just a case of can you really turn it into a big positive and say right now we can actually free them up to do something else, and that could actually be something that genuinely expands the appeal of Switch and of Nintendo games, because it's more fresh, kind of the way that Splatoon did, or has done, where if you give people the chance to do something different, obviously a lot of the times it's not necessarily going to hit like Splatoon, but freeing up some of your best development resources to do that is ultimately how you get a new kind of hit like that. And
Well,
if you don't take the swings at it, it's never going to happen.
It also lets you put people in roles that they've not had before. I mean, you're not going to put a somebody who doesn't have all the seasoning running a Mario Kart project. It's too important. But you can say, okay, we're gonna take the Mario Kart team, and some of them are gonna hang around and make DLC that we can sell for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and just keep selling that. Some of them are probably involved in the Mario Kart mobile project, at least in consultative roles. And say, okay, this team we're gonna let do something else, an ARMS situation, and we're gonna let them get experience, and ultimately we're gonna be able to judge from that, like, oh, this group here of people are candidates that we can start grooming to actually do the next Mario Kart, or to take senior roles on new projects and spin up new ideas. And, maybe we don't get the same profit return.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a kind of almost an investment component to it. That not everything is about immediate return. Sometimes these things can bear fruit maybe a bit further down the line. But in the end, you've expanded your potential to either, reach particular kinds of fans, or expanded the potential of your in-house development resources to make particular kinds of games. And that's not always sort of easily commensurable with the immediate results of just a game sells X million units, but this is the kinds of decisions that the strategic thinking that the people in leadership positions need to show. And right. I guess the nice thing about what Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, how well it's done, is just that it gives you the latitude to make those kinds of decisions if you want to.
Didn't some of the people who worked on ARMS come out of the Mario Kart team?
Yeah, there's definitely some overlap there. So I mean, you could argue just that that was like kind of one such thing. And of course, ARMS is not a massive success, but it was kind of somewhat of a success.
Right.
And I guess it'll be interesting.
Reasonably successful.
It'll be interesting to see what, if anything, more comes out of that kind of venture.
Right, and I mean that's the game that seems more likely to get a sequel than Splatoon, because Splatoon is, as you said, it's like. They could leave well enough alone on Splatoon. I mean,
well, it's true of that too, though, isn't it? I mean, they've already kind of expanded how long they're supporting it and all that. Because it's so. Because I mean, that is even more so than Mario Kart in Japan. How many units that sells each and every week?
It's ridiculous.
It's obscene. It's absolutely obscene.
As they could leave those games alone or continue to put support on them, and just know that as Switches get into the marketplace, and there's still plenty of room to grow in that space, those games will continue to sell without us doing anything, because new Switch owners are going to acquire those games, and we're good. We can just let those roll. And that it's really about creating those games that are going to sell to people who already own Mario Kart, and hope that you bring those other new customers along with them at some point. And it's like, do they need another Mario Kart? No. If they made another one, would it sell as many as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe? Probably not, because a lot of people are going to go, I've got a Mario Kart, I'm good. Would it make a ton of money? Probably. It's one of those, like, is this the best use of our time right now? And I think the fact that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is a port allowed things like ARMS to happen. And, obviously, at some point, there will be another Mario Kart game besides the mobile game. Is it going to be on Switch? I'm going to vote no. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if they extract another $20+ worth of DLC out of you before the Switch is done. Because they've already done it once with Mario Kart 8, and it was successful. And they probably have pretty good metrics on what they could expect to sell you now that they've got this more online system than ever before. And Mario Kart 8 is sold a crap ton of copies, and the Switch is a significantly more digital-first machine than the Wii U was. The average Switch consumer, I'm willing to bet, is probably far more familiar with their eShop than the Wii U consumer was, because so much of the Switch's library is this sort of like downloadable software first pivot. And as a consumer culture, we've just become increasingly comfortable buying digital-only goods. It's everywhere now.
Yeah. The only thing holding that back is the storage, I think.
It is.
Unfortunately. But I in general, I agree, and it would only be more so if the storage was more cheaply available and all that.
And we talked about it last week. At some point, they're going to upgrade the Switch's storage capacity. I mean, it's just that's the pattern they follow, with the exception of the Wii U, the Wii, excuse me, which I think never, ever, ever jumped. They upgraded how much the SD card can be at some point.
Yeah, and then they had the SD card channel where it was a lot more useful, which kind of effectively increased, how many games you could have sort of at your fingertips because of the way you could just sort of like, as long as you kept some space open on the internal memory, it would bring a game in off your SD card.
Yeah, I mean, eventually we'll get to the point where SD cards are big and cheap enough that it's moot. But Mario Kart 8's not very big. It's kind of crazy small, little black game.
Most Nintendo games are pretty economical, apart from stuff you absolutely cannot get away with, like Smash Brothers and its enormous amount of music or whatever,
right.
All that kind of stuff.
Here's 80 hours of music. Anybody else have thoughts on this one? All right.
Yeah, not really. I would just be content with more. I don't know, just give me more tracks. Give them for free or make me pay for them. I don't mind.
Could be. Well, you've got a new avenue in that sense. We talked about the whole platform, single platform thing, but of course with the online service kicking in as a pay service and all that, you could have content packs that are contingent on being a member. And maybe not at additional cost beyond that, or if you really, if your priorities to drive adoption, or it could be a discounted rate if you are a Nintendo Online subscriber. So you've got that to consider coming up very shortly now. I mean, it's near.
Sure, but just show me that. Yeah, like I'll believe it when I see it. Right now, it doesn't look like Nintendo is really all that interested.
It's September, like it's just round the corner now.
But I mean, like if there are plans for more tracks, let me know. Like I'm not buying the game before then. I feel like I've played the game enough on the Wii U. I can still play it for free online on the Wii U with those same tracks. So I'm sure Nintendo is underhanded enough to actually kind of take that away. I'm sure
take it out back and shoot it.
I wonder if the answer is roll out the online platform soft, don't push it too hard because we just don't know. And then once they feel good about it, start pushing it. But also if the move would be, okay, we've seen some softness in the online numbers. Hey, here's this whole new big track pack for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And it's, it's relatively cheap, but the thing is, if you're going to buy Mario Kart 8 tracks, you're going to buy them to play them online. Well, you've been racing Mario Kart 8, but you haven't been online anymore. Hey, now you want to play Mario Kart 8 again because there's new content. I bet you're going to buy that online pass too, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I don't think that they've really pushed everything that they can do with Mario Kart in terms of the kind of tracks that they could sell. I mean, they could do stuff like, if you look at all the other popular games, they always have, at least online games, they always have, kind of recurring things like themed whatever. Like this one's for Valentine's Day. This is something for Christmas. This is something for this. More
games as a service.
Yeah. I mean, and Mario Kart could definitely be that. That doesn't mean that, it's some sort of... Well,
very specifically, a live game.
Yeah.
More than just a game as a service.
Well, yeah. I mean, in terms of year-round updates, right? Like like consistently, like this is this month's update. And just
it's kind of built into Splatoon with the Splatfests.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, ARMS has it too now. They added that mode. I can't remember what they call it.
Yeah, the sort of face-offs between characters events.
I think that's a really
party crash. I think it might be or something like that.
Yeah, it's party crash. I think that's a really solid idea, John, because they could very easily okay. Here are 4 tracks that are winter themed, and we've remixed them into the winter race. And they've done online tournaments before.
Yeah.
Just couch it around an online tournament.
Yeah, and different costumes and stuff like that. That you can only get this costume once a year, or this is a costume for Mario that you'll only be able to get this one time. There's a lot of stuff like that. That's just there's a lot of stuff like that that's just really really easy to do.
Stuff to drive re-engagement with their online platform, to drive you giving them money on a regular basis.
Yep.
And the thing is, they're going to know when people, they're going to have, if they're selling subscriptions in yearly models, which is probably the way they're going to sell the most of them, they're going to have a big spike every year when they get that money, because it's going to be relatively closely linked to when the online platform goes for sale the first time.
Mm-hmm.
they could totally put together their live game / games as a service schedule to be like, hey, right on the other side of this date we know is 0 hour for like the median jump in re-ups.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, there's a whole bunch of events happening just on the other side of that date. Don't you want to renew your subscription?
Yeah.
And that big email that prompts you like, hey, your subscription's up in 2 weeks. Here's what's coming up after your time. Here's 7 events.
Yeah. I mean, they're starting it in September, right? So you would think October would be a good time, not only because everybody next year would be re-upping their subscriptions,
Right.
but also
everybody this year needs to get it.
Exactly. And also you're going into the holidays, so it's kind of perfect timing for all that stuff, right? So I mean, you could even promote games coming out for Christmas with Mario Kart.
Yeah. Oh, we talked about this with Smash all those years ago, where like they could put new characters. Then we realized there are no new Wii U games, so that whole plan fell completely apart. But yeah, I mean, there are options here that they could take that would make Mario Kart 8 a convert it from what is effectively just an online game into a proper live game, which is the way to get people to continually re-engage in it. And then it's a question of how do you extract currency from them once they re-engage? Do you sell them new DLC, or do they just take it as a win that they bought the online service?
Mm-hmm.
And the online service is $15 a year, right?
20, right?
20.
Yeah, it's 20 a year.
Yeah, I mean that's not a ton of money, but that may be enough from their standpoint. So
yeah, but still, I mean, even that's just the fact that it's not that much money compared to competitors is even more reason to have these kind of ongoing, whether they're microtransactions or not, whatever, they could work that out.
Things that they can sell you, beyond just the online platform.
Yep.
How much would you pay for a costume in Mario Kart? Let's say you could dress up Dry Bones with a talking Steve Hewitt hat.
No, he is, because that's what happens to Steve Hewitt in the lava.
Okay, that was after the volcano?
Yeah, he becomes Dry Bones. That's the origin story.
Wow.
Oh, we've got new lore.
It depends. It depends. See, what I would do is I would have sets, right? So
Okay.
I would have a Day of Crisis themed
Oh,
cart outfit.
Is it
and
is it a
cap.
mech? Is it
Well,
a bear?
I think what you would have, I think for a costume you would have a bear suit.
Yes.
Definitely a bear suit.
God damn it! You're right. You would.
And then for a cart,
Wario in the bear suit is I'm feeling that.
Yeah. For the cart, I don't know.
I mean, there's that shitty sedan that you drive with the reversed controls and looking the wrong way for a big portion of the game.
Going across like the not Golden Gate Bridge or whatever.
Yeah, the bad bridge segment. It could just be that car.
Yeah.
I mean, they had fucking Mercedes in there. Why can't it be that car?
Yeah.
True.
We're about 2/3 of the way to a DLC kit, John.
Yeah, I mean, I just greenlight it. I hope somebody out there is listening. Nintendo,
if you're listening, you can have that one.
Yep.
You cannot have the hat though. That one you gotta talk to us first.
The Day of Crisis pack. Bring it on.
Pack of Crisis. There we go.
More like
well,
Day of Crisis, am I right?
That's going to do it for this podcast of Crisis. You can send your emails to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com and we can do whatever we just did to them. So, Greg, what is our music for this week?
Well, we had a request from Martin, who's been working his way through Xenoblade 2, for a song from that, and it coincides with another update that adds a rare blade and stuff, so why not? Even though we've already used it a fair bit. We'll probably use it again because of the Torna.
I told you how many days it is till the Torna theme.
The Torna Golden Country, but still. Yeah, Martin picked out this theme from the Inderline Praetorium, the Night version of this song. So yeah, this is kind of interesting because this is Mitsuda. Apparently, it was a long-held kind of ambition for him to work with this particular choral ensemble. I think Anuna it is. This was like decades in the making for him, that he wanted to work with this group to do something like this, and this is I think there's sort of like 4 songs in the end that use the choir in Xenoblade 2,
yeah.
and this is a particularly nice one for the very Vatican-esque confines of Indol.
I'm glad somebody finally gave that guy Mitsuda a chance to make the soundtrack he wanted. That he finally had the opportunity to spend some money. That story's so insane to me. He's like, oh, I spent years trying. It's like, dude, you could have done this whenever you wanted. You make $1 million soundtracks all the time. Well. Here's some sanctified music for a very unsanctified episode.
Yeah, the divine and the profane, not in that order.
Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Some must carry on, 'cause and some must face the dark. It's in Father's wishes we let us come together. We must never give up. Let those people seek, guide the ones who cannot hear. Voices guide us through. Words from above. We are the chosen ones. Softly in those wings, safely held apart. As we sleep, silence here, just here. Guard your angels, they too will keep us The path we chose is cold, and the dark has no place to dream. Must we go on? Will we ever prevail and smile in peace?
I said I had one request, and that request was,
Go on.
Greg, would you
Kiss the
please start the show? And for the love of
Kiss
God,
the
don't
death.
let John do it.
You
I heard the
basically
boo.
asked me.
No, because I knew if I asked you to do it, you'd go, oh, I'm gonna have John do it. So at least now I can take away any basis of plausible deniability. Everyone saw the do not let John do this.
I'm so sorry. I heard the bloop showing that James was back on Skype, but I was not fast enough to hit the red, hang up button.
So I am sitting here now with alcohol because this is required now in my life as things have progressed beyond the show. I just started and I've already let out at least 2 F-bombs. So this could get very salty. So catch me up on what's happened while I was away.
Only Greg's new business.
Oh, Greg.
All right. Well, no, but we all keep recording. You start a new recording, and we clap again.
All right, that's fine. Everything's fine. I was doing a bit, John. I was doing a bit for the show. I was doing a fucking bit. All right, fine. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There are gonna be
Andy
so
Kaufman
many.
here.
There are gonna be so many clap points in this fucking audio. All right.